Welcome to the complete guide for Mirage and Deadlock, the best character channeling a genie since Aladdin, and as a 90s kid, that's saying a lot. Let's get to it, starting with a breakdown of his abilities. These are all based on the patch as of 10/10/2024, and this patch included some rebalancing for his abilities, including a damage nerf to his Djinn's mark, while also increasing the scaling with spirit items. More on this in a little bit though. First ability is the Tornado. Transform yourself into a tornado that travels forward, damaging enemies and lifting them up in the air. After emerging from the tornado, you gain bullet evasion. The base values are 70 damage, 1.1 second lift duration, 25% bullet evasion chance, 32 second cooldown, 3.5 meter bullet evasion duration, and 3.5 meter radius. As you collect souls and unlock additional tiers, these values change slightly. Tier 1 gains an additional 0.4 second lift duration, Tier 2 reduces the cooldown by 14 seconds, and Tier 5 applies plus 20% bullet evasion chance. Checking in. Did the tornado give you brain damage in the process? Let's try and recover it by breaking it down. You move forward and cause a warpath in front of you, locking everything in position momentarily, becoming less likely to take damage from enemies, and makes them susceptible to you coming back for seconds like hurricane season in the south. Quick tip, don't be afraid to throw in a heavy melee attack immediately after locking your enemy in place, but also recognize this is your main form of escapability, so use it wisely, especially if your ultimate is on cooldown. Ability 2 is Fire Scarab. Launch Fire Scarabs at your enemy that steal max health from them and apply bullet resist reduction. Base values are 4 charges, a 0 second cooldown between charges, 90 max health steal, minus 10% bullet resist to your enemies, 5 second launch window, 14 second debuff duration, 25% heal versus non-heroes, and 32 second cooldown. Tier 1 reduces the cooldown by 15 seconds. Tier 2 does an additional minus 15% bullet resist to your enemies, and Tier 5 gains an additional 70 max health steal. If the heat of the desert doesn't get your opponents to keep their distance, then some flaming desert bugs that steal life just may. Simply put, Mirage throws firebugs at his enemies to deal damage, steal health, and make them weaker to his bullets. I find a lot of people get confused by the multiple charges, but not gaining health from each hit and having charges remaining while on cooldown. The ability has a 5-second window shown by a bar on the UI where you can fire each charge, so release them as fast as you can while remaining accurate and let them swarm. Or the ability will go on cooldown with any unused charge remaining. It is also important to note that you can only use a Scarab once on each enemy, and it will go through an already affected enemy to hit anything behind them, so use it wisely and tactfully when fighting in big groups. Ability 3 is Djinn's Mark. After 3 guides, I'm starting to feel like a broken record, but this is less so my favorite ability as much as I think it's a crazy strong part of Mirage's damage output. Your shots apply an increasing multiplier on the target. When the multiplier on a target expires or you reach the max, it is consumed and the target suffers spirit damage and is briefly revealed on the map. Base values are 12 damage, an 8 times max multiplier, 2.5 second cooldown between multiplier, 4.5 second multiplier duration, 3 second reveal duration, and an active consume multiplier on Djinn's Mark to deal its damage now. Tier 1 applies an 80% slow for 0.5 seconds whenever the multiplier is on 2 times or higher. Tier 2 is plus 4 seconds multiplier duration and 10 base damage. And Tier 5 is minus 0.5 second cooldown between multiplier and plus 4 max multiplier. Djinn's Mark is something like a wish from a genie in a bottle if the genie was set on helping you inflict max damage and death on your enemies. The ability is somewhat straightforward, but in some ways I find it misunderstood when learning to play Mirage. Personally, I was trying to consistently pump out damage with heroes, which is generally your goal in most fights, but with Mirage, your goal with the Djinn's Mark, a slower single shot bullet and a relatively small magazine, you need to be more tactful with your shot choice and make sure you are accurate. You want to use visual indicators and timing to make sure each bullet you fire is used to increase the multiplier and keep bullets in the magazine for when it's time to pump out damage at 4 times and 8 times multipliers to make your enemy look like, well, pop goes the weasel. Quick tip is that an item like Ricochet can be purchased and interacts with this ability, so you can do crowd control damage with the multiplier and never miss the window to keep up this stack, which is extremely important given the limitations that I previously mentioned. Final ability is Traveler. Mirage teleports to any visible hero on the minimap. Yes, this includes teammates or enemies, and based on when your channel starts, that's where you'll end up. Then you gain movement speed and fire rate until your decks reload. Base values are a 2.5 second channel duration, plus 2 meters per second move speed, 130 second cooldown, plus 20% fire rate, 4 second move speed duration, 1 target hit per shot, and 25% evasion chance. Tier 1 gains an additional 2 meters per second move speed, Tier 2 reduces the cooldown by 30 seconds, and Tier 5 gains an additional 30% fire rate. This one is actually just like it sounds. You can teleport to jump onto your enemies to create an advantage in a fight, help save a teammate in a bad position, or use it to get around a corner and escape a fight. Since Mirage, like other heroes, can feel weak if you fall behind in souls, you can use your ultimate to get your farm up on one side of the map or push a lane back to keep pressure on the enemy, then teleport into a team fight. In short, map awareness and game strategy is extremely important to consider when using this like any great nomad. So how do you play Mirage? Your priorities are similar in all phases, but Mirage's abilities really help you have an impact with quick ganks in the early game and expanded total map domination in the mid to late game, eventually becoming so in tune with your Djinn that you make your enemies explode in a hurry. I'd recommend you purchase your Djinn's Mark ability to start the game, as it can help you secure the kill on the wave and punish your enemies with consistent damage threat. Followed up with the tornado, as it does damage, helps with evading enemies, and creates outplay opportunities for you and your teammate with heavy melees after locking an enemy in place or moving near their buy station to finish them off. This leaves Fire Scarabs, which is your main way of sustaining life through the health seal. It can also come in handy when you're starting to get an enemy low and waiting for the next multiplier to keep up damage before making your move for a kill. If you're dealing with a lot of poke in lane, you can switch the order to get Fire Scarabs unlocked first. Once you do have your ultimate, make sure to be aware of other lanes fights and look for opportunities to teleport in and swing fight to help out other lanes, as well as take objectives quickly. As for leveling up your abilities, I strongly recommend prioritizing Djinn's Mark to at least tier 2 and get slowing damage, extended duration, and max damage. But tier 5 is preferred if you can afford to wait on other abilities' cooldown reduction. As with every guide I make, think through the priority of it. For example, you may want to reconsider rushing to tier 5 if you want to build around your tornado. Next, get Fire Scarabs to tier 1 so you can get the cooldown reduction. Followed up with a tier 2 tornado for the additional lift and cooldown time reduction. Then tier 2 for your ultimate for additional movement and cooldown reduction. If you have not already, it is now time to max out your Djinn's Mark. If you rushed it, then I would go to tier 2 Fire Scarabs, tier 5 Traveler, tier 5 Tornado, and finish off with tier 5 Fire Scarabs. If you find that you need health a lot, then you can switch this around to prioritize Fire Scarabs and get that additional health. But this specific path is based on a damage output and gank playstyle. The mid game is where Mirage needs to focus on farming souls, but not just in the dunes of the desert this time. In game by solo pushing waves and clearing jungle camps. I mentioned it earlier that Mirage can quickly find his way into a fight with teleporting, but there's a very unique opportunity for map control and fight swinging potential. The important part is a little different from any other hero. You want to be in your own lane, even if it is on the other side of the map from your teammates, and watch health bars or the minimap to look for ability to create a fight advantage by using your teleport in and swinging the fight. This allows you to push back lanes, get souls farm advantage, and keep total map pressure up without missing a gank or team fight. Quick note, you can rush Ricochet if you're struggling or want to further distance your lead, as it drastically speeds up your souls farm in the mid game, especially with tier 3 camps. More on items later though, let's get into the late game. By this point, you should be very well fed and have the ability to swing fights, especially team fights. You can still keep up total map control with your teleport to farm lanes, but I find that you're able to channel a full Mage role for Nishala by looking for groups of enemies to stack your Djinn's Mark. His impact is felt by dominating lane-to-lane combat heavy shots, get in and out of fights with the teleport, and tackle the backlines of even the most formidable enemies. Now, before we get into the builds discussion, which is arguably one of the more important parts of this video, I want you to be aware of some stats that can be treated like levers to improve your build process. Understanding these very well will help you to create the build of your dreams. Mirage's Fire Scarab's health steal scales with spirit items at 0.9 times, while Tornado and Djinn's Mark damage scales at 0.7 and 0.55 times respectively. On the other side of the equation are stats that can be impacted by vitality and weapon items. His health is 550 with 2 HP regeneration per second, bullet and spirit resist of 0%, move speed of 7 meters per second with no additional sprint movement speed, and stamina values of 3. The weapon does 18 damage with a 2 times multiplier to headshots, a magazine size of 16, and shoots 2.86 bullets per second. Light and heavy melee damage is 63 and 116 respectively. As you collect souls and level up, bullet damage increases by 1, melee damage increases by 2.7, and health increases by 41. The bullet damage increase is the 5th highest of all heroes. The melee is in line with other heroes, and health increases slightly higher than most other heroes. He's here to guard his charge whether with his gun or spirit of earth, wind, and fire. If you get through his builds and need a refresher, watch this section with the values again to think through how it would work. So let's kick off the build options. First, we're gonna start with the weapon. Now, Mirage's weapon builds are extremely important for his kick, especially because you've got the Djinn's Mark on the 3rd ability. So this is going to be extremely important to build into and around. In the 500 options, we've got a lot of the usual suspects, including things like monster rounds and restorative shots for during the laning phase. But I personally like the high velocity mag. This one will help you because the rate of fire on Mirage's weapon isn't as quick. So during the laning phase, you need to be able to secure souls. At the 1250 options, we've got quite a few of the usual culprits. Long range is an interesting one because you can do poke damage and get that multiplier up. So there is a play style that allows you to play back and use this, but I personally like the slowing bullets because I want to get in there and have an impact during team fights. And this will apply movement slow to your enemies. At the 3000 level, again, some of the usual culprits, including a larger magazine size. I don't like to build for a magazine size. I like to be accurate. That's me personally. But the one that I like to look at is Heroic Aura, which gives a fire rate bonus to nearby minions, and the active provides movement speed and fire rate to you and nearby allies. So Mirage doesn't move very quickly base. It's not extremely fast like other characters, and there's not a lot of ability to get into and out of fights outside of the tornado, which is sort of a shorter radius. So I personally like Heroic Aura, and it can extremely swing fights. Your usual culprits are here. For me, I like Ricochet. It just goes extremely well with Djinn's Mark. It can make sure that if you're shooting a minion and someone goes around the corner, you can keep that multiplier going up before you get in there and go crazy. Obviously, Spiritual Overflow is one that I would like to highlight as well. You gain bonus fire rate and spirit power by charging up when shooting enemy heroes. This one can just stack extremely well with Djinn's Mark and literally everything else you've got going in your kit. All right, next up, we've got our vitality options. In the 500 section, it's our usual lane sustain options, but we've also got extra stamina and sprint boots. The tornado is a good movement option, but it doesn't go very far, and the ultimate is a costly movement option. So these are things that you should consider improving to help you get into and out of fights. In the 1250 section, bullet lifesteal could be interesting for sustain, especially paired with fire scarabs and allowing you to stay in fights. Enduring spirit, we already talked about how movement can be helpful. Return fire, I like a ton, because if you want to get in there and do some backline ganking, this is very helpful to you. Or if you just want to be in the thick of it in a fight, another way for you to do additional damage quickly. In the 3000, we've got our usual culprits, including superior stamina, metal skin, debuff remover, but Veil Walker for me is exciting as anything. If you're going for that backline gank play, moving through Cosmic Veils gives you a ton of benefit, and you can get in there and go absolutely crazy. Now in the 6200, there's quite a few here. Colossus is interesting because if you pair it with your tornado and or just want to get into it in fights, this can be very, very helpful. I personally really like Inhibitor and Leech. Leech for obvious reasons, but Inhibitor, your bullets apply movement slow and will reduce the target's outgoing damage on hit. Now, you get in there, you make people move slow, you can keep up with them, and you reduce the damage they can do on you. This one is almost a must-have for me. All right, and lastly, we've got spirit options. I know this is looking pretty full, and that's because Mirage's kit interacts really well with spirit items. So this is going to be quite full, but we're going to talk about some different options that you might see consistently, as well as maybe less consistently, but are things to be considered. Specifically, Ammo Scavenger can help you during laning phase to help you have extra ammo considering Mirage's magazine size. An extra charge with fire scarabs can be helpful. I personally am a big fan of Mystic Burst because of the additional spirit damage that you can do and how much of his kit involves spirit damage. In the 1250 section, we've got our usual culprits of Quicksilver Reload and Suppressor, which is also very interesting. I like Bullet Resist Shredder. Again, Bullet Resist on enemies when you deal spirit damage. A lot of Mirage's kit does spirit damage, so this can be very, very good when combined with your Djinn's Mark. Withering Whip, I love for the same reason. You can apply a fire rate slow and reduce their bullet resist, so when you're ready to get in and get active, you can make them absolutely get shredded. In the 3000 section, again, improved burst. Again, we talked about Mystic Burst. There's a reason that's there. Improved reach with the tornado. Superior cooldown and superior duration. Cooldown because you can have more tornadoes, more ultimates, and just have map domination. Superior duration because Djinn's Mark, that's when people are going to go pop goes the weasel. I mean, this thing will make sure that you never miss a Djinn's Mark window. Torment Pulse. Very fun one if you're planning on getting in there. Ethereal Shift is your savior though. If you are doing lots of backline ganking or team fighting, this one can help you make sure that you stay alive for longer because you don't have a lot of movement, and this can be a absolute savior for you. Now, Boundless Spirit, Diviner's Kevlar is... Those are two that you're going to see quite often. Upon casting an ultimate ability, gain temporary bullet shield, spirit shield, and spirit power. Think it through. How much spirit power can you get in one character? When you're using your ultimate and you're getting in there and ready to go, this can go absolutely insane. I like Mystic Reverb. Curse is very interesting, but Echo Shard is one that I think can be very, very fun. Now, the reason why I say this is fun is resets the cooldown of your most recently used non-ultimate ability. I like this because Tornado. I mean, you use a Tornado to get in, you can use the Tornado to get back out really, really quickly and just absolutely go insane on your enemies. So it's a very fun way to play the character, so I figured I'd mention it as well. That is everything for today. With the winds of the Desert Storm, may you be a mirage to your enemies and sweep them away in a sandstorm and barrage of fire. I hope you enjoyed it. I put a lot of effort into it, and well, if you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments down below. If you hated it, also let me know in the comments down below. I really do listen to everybody's feedback, and I try to make small improvements every single time. Either way, thank you so much for watching. I absolutely appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. And, well, maybe let me know what build or guide you would want me to do next. Catch y'all next time. Thanks so much for watching.